In the golden age of piracy, there lived a pirate named Jack Harlow and his ship, the Peerless. He was a ruthless and cunning pirate who was feared by sailors and merchants alike. But despite his reputation, Jack had a code of ethics he held near and dear to his heart. He refused to deal in the slave trade. Raiding ships and ports for goods and coin was fine, but no human should be in chains. One day, Jack and his crew came across a slaver vessel that was transporting a group of freshly captured slaves from their homeland to the colonies. Jack was instantly enraged that these slavers did business in the same port as he did. He quickly decided he needed to send a message to the slavers. He gathered his crew and told them of his plan to hijack the ship and set the slaves free. However, not everyone was on board with Jack's plan. Some of his crew members were in it for the money and the loot, and they saw the slaves as nothing more than a source of extra profits. They were unwilling to risk their lives and their share of the loot for the sake of a group of people they considered to be weak enough to be placed in bondage. Faced with resistance from his own crew, Jack had a difficult choice to make. He could either abandon his plan and turn a blind eye to the suffering of the slaves, or he could betray his crew and go ahead with the hijacking anyway. Jack knew that the latter option was dangerous, but he was driven by a sense of justice and compassion, and he couldn't ignore the plight of the slaves. So, Jack made his move. He ordered his crew to attack the slave ship and release the slaves. He brought the Peerless right next to the slave vessel. Both shook as they banged against each other. With Jack at the front, he ordered his men to drop planks to make a bridge across the vessels. Jack, holding two pistols, charged across the planks, leaping onto the deck of the slaver vessel and immediately sending two balls into two members of the crew. Holstering one pistol to draw his cutlass and flipping the other to use as a club, he slaughtered his way across the deck and gave his men an opportunity to cross the planks to assist him. The battle was fierce, but Jack and his crew were able to overcome the slave ship's guards and set the slaves free. However, Jack's actions did not go unnoticed by his crew. They were furious that he had betrayed them and put their lives in danger for the sake of a group of slaves. They turned on Jack, determined to make him pay for his treachery. But Jack was not one to back down. He stood his ground, facing his crew with his cutlass in hand. He told them that he was not afraid to die for what he believed in, and that he would do it all over again if he had to. His words echoed in the minds of some of his crew members, and they joined him in standing up against the others. Jack knew a mutiny was on his hands. He offered the man one final chance to see reason before plunging his blade into the chest of the loudest man. A violent scuffle took place in between the two ships. Luckily, the slaves stepped in and assisted Jack, surely saving his life. In the end, Jack and his newfound allies were able to defeat their mutinous crew members and escape with the freed slaves. Jack ordered all the slaves and remaining crew to the Peerless. Then he ordered his men to set fire to the slave vessel and let the bodies burn. They set sail, heading towards the closest port. Jack offered the slaves a home among the Peerless, and the ones that accepted became part of his crew. From that day on, Jack became known as a different kind of pirate, one who used his power and influence to help the oppressed, rather than exploit them. He continued to fight for justice on the high seas, and his legacy lived on long after he was gone.